What's up, big dogs? Welcome back to the series. Next up, the last wide receiver we'll be covering for now, a big dog's favorite, Noah's favorite, thick little guy, Jalen Reagor. All right, people are going to hate on Jalen Reagor because he didn't run a 4.3, but I hope you guys realize that he put on basically 10 pounds. He was 205, I believe, right? Or something like that at 5'11".
Yeah, I think it was 209. We'll put
Was
up
he
his
209?
athletic profile.
Yeah, we'll put up his profile and you'll see it. It's 206. So he's 206 at 5'11". Still ran a 4.47, guys. 4.47 is not slow. And if you actually watch like the in-game film, I forget which Twitter account is, but they basically do a thing that actually calculates your like in-game speed. This dude hit 22 miles per hour. So look, I'm not worried about at all about his speed. But what's more impressive is his burst. You know, we've talked about it before. Ray's talked about it before. This guy is a high school jumping champion. So you know his burst is going to be up there. 99th percentile, 140.4 burst score, put up like 17 reps on the bench as well. Like, look, this dude is a dynamic athlete. And from an analytics perspective, he is an absolute darling. He is an 18-year-old breakout, which is 95th percentile. He took a little bit of a dip back in his production this year, but this is not an understatement when we say this. But his quarterback play is about as bad as Cam Akers' offensive line play was. Like, it is absolutely brutal. But he broke out as a true freshman, okay? He broke a true freshman, 22% dominator, and then he exploded as a sophomore, hitting a 44% dominator and kind of dipped back to that 30% range this year. But again, he's crossed that threshold. So from an analytics perspective, I'm not really that worried. From a film perspective, I don't know what you're going to say, no, but to me, he's an absolute beast. And it's really that burst that comes into play. He really attacks the ball at the catch point, super aggressive. And people are going to talk about drops. Like, I don't really care. They're not really like him being scared. They're just like him trying to do too much because his team sucks.
I will say
But yeah,
some of them were him being scared, but it wasn't scared of defenders. It was literally scared of the pass coming his way. His quarterback would throw him like Blake Bortles used to do this. He would just throw bullets at people's knees and they couldn't catch it. It was the same thing with Reagor. Like, he's running a 5-yard crossing route and the guy's just trying to take his head off like Duck Hunter. Like, you're not a quarterback if you throw like that. And a lot of his drops, sure, he did drop, I think it was like 7 balls on like 55 catchable targets. But when every throw going your way, you don't even expect to catch it because they're so inaccurate. Like, I can't put too much blame on him, especially after the 2018 season he had where he didn't have any type of drop issues and he was extremely efficient and prolific on the opportunities that he had. I was looking into just how bad his play was this year from his quarterback. He had the third least percentage of his targets be deemed catchable at 59.8%. So basically 40% of the time the ball was thrown his way, there was no chance Reagor could have even caught it, let alone drop it. On top of that, he's a guy who wins deep down the field with his speed and in contested situations. But I'd argue one of the better ways to use him is just in the screen game, trying to get him in open space and create after the catch because he's an elite punt returner. He only had 9 screen receptions this year. So not only was the quarterback terrible, the offensive play caller was awful. Like, how do you not get this guy the ball with the burst and the speed that he has and that he's shown in the previous 2 years? Like, the fact that they couldn't get him open out in space it's more of an indictment on his situation than him as a player. On top of that, the overall team production and why his dominator rating is still so high in the face of not great counting numbers is the team only had 15 passing scores and less than 2,500 passing yards in 12 games, which is, it's terrible, especially for a Power 5 team. But on top of that, right, you look at this guy and you see the downswing, and his in-depth stats do speak to that a little bit. Only 26.5% of his yards came after the catch and 3.8 yards after catch per reception it ranked fairly low. But again, going back to that Curtis Samuel argument, when you're used in the areas of the field where he was used, where it's deep down the field, and a lot of the clips that you'll see is him adjusting to balls in midair. And, you know, there was one play, I think it was against Oklahoma State, where he burns the defender and he's wide open and he's forced to make some spectacular catch down the sideline. And he does come down with it, which is a reason I'm not worried about his hands because he makes some ridiculous catches. But like, you can't gain yards after the catch in college once you got onto the ground, and you can't gain them after you do like a backflip and catch a 40-yard pass. So that's not something I'm worried about, especially after 2018, where 41% of his yards came after the catch. So he can show that in the open field, he's elite. On top of that, in the return game, he was used as the team's main punt returner. He brought one to the house. I'm sure I'll put that on the screen because it's a sight to behold. He actually averaged the 5th most punt return yards per return among guys that had at least 10 punt returns. I don't know how many times I said return in that sentence, but it was a lot, basically showing that although he didn't get a lot of yards after catch this year, him in the open field, it's a beautiful thing. It's poetry in motion, and you shouldn't write off him as a prospect because he had a down year and because he didn't run a 4.30. We've seen him burn people on tape. And I know people want to say like, oh, game speed is different, whatever. And like, you want to write that off. Like, him being clocked in at 22 miles an hour is enough for me to believe that his relatively low 40 time had to do something with him eating like 15 Dunkaroos or whatever prior to the combine. Like a lot of these guys put on weight and drop weight to look favorable to these coaches that don't understand that like boxers can cut 20 pounds in like 24 hours. Like a lot of this just has to do with the profile. Jalen Reagor was a little bit slower than we had hoped, but still 4.4 at his BMI is incredible speed. He's gonna have no problem burning people deep at the next level just because he's shown it every single year of his career. He's an elite prospect analytically, athletically. I just love the guy. There's not much in his film that I see that he needs to really work on. Obviously the hands a bit, but if he has a quarterback that's semi-competent, I have no issues there.
Yeah, look, I can't say this enough, but 40 times for wide receivers just don't matter. Like unless you're running like a lineman 5'9", like he's well within that fast enough range. And Graham Barfield put this up, pretty cool graphic, just like the accuracy of the throws by receiver for like the top 22 prospects, and Jalen Reagor, he ranked dead last by quite a wide margin at like
that's
31%.
Not very good.
Look, guys, I get it. Like we want to see yards after catch, and we've touted guys like Lamb for being able to do that, but there's a certain minimum threshold of skill level at quarterback that you need some help with. And at play caller, like he can't really do everything himself. So if he gets the draft capital, I'm very excited. Hopefully the 4.47 didn't hurt his draft capital. But honestly, like I think that going into the draft, like he wasn't really getting much hype. And I still viewed as a pretty successful combine, right? Because of his burst score and his strength and everything else. Like he just really proved that he was a great athlete. So hopefully he gets my eyeballs on him and he goes in that day 2 range. If he goes in the second round, I'm super excited. If he goes in the third, I'm still content with it, depending on the landing spot. I would love to see him land in Philly. I think he would be a great threat. If Philly misses out on Ruggs, hopefully they take a shot on him. If
they miss out on Ruggs and take a shot on him, they didn't miss out on Ruggs because they
exactly. I mean that would have meant that they saved them themselves. Kind of like that year where like Jerry Jones was crying about getting Dak because he missed out on Paxton Lynch.
I think it was Connor Cook too, or something like that.
Yeah. So look, guys, sometimes just like in fantasy, where the best trade you make is the ones that you miss. Sometimes in the NFL draft, the best draft picks you make are the ones that you miss. So hopefully he gets a great landing spot. We love Reagor. We love everything about him. We love his analytics. We love his film. Just really hope that last piece falls into place for him.
Yeah, and that's all it really comes down to. And the combine isn't 99th percentile spark that we had hoped, but I think if any type of GM, or if any GM out there has any type of competence and he falls to the second round, or God forbid the third, there's no chance he's falling outside the third. Somebody's going to want to take a shot on a guy that shows not only the production he did, but just the overall versatility. Somebody that can give it to you even out of the backfield, right? On top of the receiving game, on top of the return game. Somebody who you can just run at wildcat, run behind center and just, take the ball 40, 50 yards to the house. He has it all. He has so much juice. The burst that he showed, jumping like 40 something inches, setting records that grown men used to hold at like the age of 16 is ridiculous and kind of demoralizing for a bunch of Olympic athletes. So yeah, if he goes round 2, he's sitting put at the wide receiver 1 for me, especially if it's a good landing spot. It's tough to keep him there now, knowing that the other 2 guys are probably going to go round 1. But if it's Philly in round 2, he's wide receiver 1. Him with Carson Wentz would be such an upgrade over anything he's seen to this point.
Most definitely. I would love to see that. And that's something that I just keep saying it in the hopes that I can kind of speak it into existence.
It's like me with a Pittsburgh running back. But...
Yeah. So, all right, guys, look, we love him. Hopefully you love him. Take a shot on him. I mean, where do you think he's going to go? Like, I think if you're sitting there at the 1.08, especially after the little bit disappointing combine, like maybe you might even get him at like the 1.10, like 1.11, because guys like Justin Jefferson are going to jump ahead.
That's what I was going to say. I think
Denzel Mims, if someone takes Denzel Mims ahead of him, like, dude, I would love that if I was sitting in the back half of the first.
Yeah, here at Big Dogs, we love those 2 guys, Justin Jefferson and Denzel Mims, but I still think the tier amongst these 3 guys, the jump between each one of them in that tier is so much smaller than the jump between each one of them and the guys in tier 2, if that makes any sense. So if they fall, if any one of these guys fall behind a Jefferson or Mims and you're up next on the clock, just snag them. Because at least in our opinions, we believe that they are not miles ahead of the rest of the guys, but they've shown that there's a reason for them to separate from the pack. And yeah, if he falls to 110, 111, even if there's like, say, I don't know, we don't like Zach Moss too much anymore, but say he lands in a really good landing spot, Zach Moss, and Jalen Reagor is still on the board for you, I'm probably just going Jalen Reagor because I believe in his talent a lot more.
For sure. All right, Big Dogs, that's all we got for you. Hope you enjoyed this series. Peace.